guys, thanks for tuning in. So today we're going to be checking out the MJX X601H. Now this one is basically the new X600, MJX new X600, and it's got a lot of extra bells and whistles on it here. And so what I'm going to be doing today is unboxing this, setting it up, hooking it up, and making sure the FPV works. This is an FPV Wi-Fi quad, where you can connect it to your cell phone, mount your cell phone up on your controller, and have FPV on there. And this also has some other functions that I don't see how it could possibly have, kind of like a flight plan automated function without GPS. I don't know how that's possible, but definitely going to be checking that out and putting it through the test in the park today. Anyway, this is it, and it's also down in the description. So check down there in the video description and you can check out all the specs, the pricing, and everything on it. Anyway, this has got one key return, it's got FPV, it's got a camera, different mode switches for different speeds, it's got a 7.4 volt 700 milliamp battery. I think that's a little bit bigger than the last X600 model. And it does rolls and flips. It also has a search light function, not sure what that is, maybe a bright LED light on the front. Altitude hold and app control. When we flip this thing over is where it gets kind of interesting. On this side it's saying, which caught my eye right away, was flight plan. Now I don't see how that's going to happen unless you have GPS on a quadcopter, but apparently this one's saying it's got some kind of flight plan, unless this is kind of a blanketed comment where something else is coming out by MJX that has GPS. I just don't see how you can do a flight plan, but we're definitely going to be downloading the app, hooking it up, and taking it out to the park and testing all this stuff today. So anyway, without further ado, let's go ahead and unbox this bad boy. Really excited. This is going to be the black version. On the box it said this is the black version. There's a black and a gold version you can see here. Okay, so let's slide this guy out. Nice, so it looks pretty much almost exactly like the first X600. Nice, sleek, black hexacopter. Beautiful hexacopter. I think I might have called it a quadcopter earlier, sorry about that. Definitely a hexacopter. It's got 6 blades and 6 arms. So just gonna pull everything out of the box here real quick. Then we'll talk about everything that comes in the box. So that should be it. So let's see what we got in this pile of stuff. So here's the controller, black controller. Here's a little bag of goodies with prop guards and landing gear and some screws. Here we have another bag. This looks like the cell phone mount to mount on the controller. Looks like we have our propellers here. Actually an extra 6, complete set of 6 extra propellers. So great job, MJX. Giving us all 6 extra propellers. And here's our charger and a screwdriver. And actually the stick things for the controller sticks that we want to put on, the thumbsticks. So let's put those on right away. So I'm just taking those out and I'm just going to immediately push those right on to the controller sticks. There we go. Then we get this manual here in the box as well. Alright, so let's have a look at the MJX 601. Now, the MJX X600, the first generation of this, was just completely and utterly awesome. That thing had great range, great flight time, very fast. It had the 7.4 volt as well. This thing was very durable. I crashed it from hundreds of feet, didn't break anything. It was easy to work on, and the look was just super sleek. I mean, they kept that look. They didn't change that. I'm really glad that they kept this look. And you could also put upgraded batteries in it because the battery compartment was fairly large in the last one. So it looks like they kept that as well. Looks like we do have a screw here. And I think you can leave this screw out. I didn't have to put that screw back in the last one because it has these snap latches. But anyway, just going to pull this thing apart real quick, get a little bit of a close-up look. Now this looks like a great battery, 700 milliamp. I think the first generation had a 6 or so hundred, so that's an upgrade there. This one does have the Wi-Fi now. There's our Wi-Fi camera here mounted up, and it's all plugged in, ready to go. And it looks like it may possibly have a remote control tilt function on the camera. That'll be cool if it does. I'm not really seeing a way to push it And so it looks like that might be a remote control tilt. So that's great. Anyway, that's it there. On-off switch on top. I'm really glad they kept that X600 really successful look and didn't really change much on that. Really digging that. Alright, so this is going to be the bag with the propeller guards and the landing gear. I'm not going to put the propeller guards on, but I am going to put the landing gear on. Okay, so just pulling the landing gear out. If you did want to put your propeller guards, if you're a beginner, I definitely recommend it. So there's 6 propeller guards here, and the way you put those on is you just take the arm here and you just slide these guys down in these 2 notches on either side of the motor. Really easy to do. And then there's a screw that you just put in right there. They give you a little bag of screws and you just put those screws in. So put these on if you're a total beginner. You can take them off when you get a little better. It'll just save you from breaking some of your propellers when you're learning. When you do take these off, you will get more flight time and there will be less wind resistance. A little easier to fly when they're off, ironically, because you won't have the wind grabbing onto those things. Anyway, here's a little bag of screws, and we're going to need that to put on this landing gear. And the way you put on this landing gear looks like all we're doing real simple, just pushing it in here onto either side. Yeah, so it's a little bit different on both sides because the landing gear is, you see how this one has this little holder for the antenna, the FPV antenna? So that one's going to go on this side. Nice and easy, and then just taking some screws and screwing in those legs. There's 1 screw for each one just to make sure that they are held in there tight. So we're going to do that for all 4 legs. Okay, so legs are on. Now let's go ahead and mount this antenna up here on this leg. And it should just be going ahead and mounting just like that. You see how that mounts. Just clips in nice and easy. There's our battery compartment that we can just snap in nice and easy after we plug in. So let's go ahead and set this on the side for a sec and pull up the controller and mount this phone clip on the controller and just start it up, see if it works, and then get out to the park and do a test flight. Okay, so we can see that this is like a spring-loaded cell phone clip. So really all we're doing with the cell phone clamp is we're just popping this thing in. See this kind of ball just pops in to this joint. Then we're just sliding this right over the antenna like so. And this antenna thing has a little clip, so you pull this out if you want to take it off. Kind of cool. It's just a spring-loaded little clip, so it snaps on really nice and tight. And there we go. Now we can just mount up our phone right here. This is a really good system. If you don't want to use it, easy to take off. Pull this pin up, pop it off, done. You can fly without it. If you want to use your phone, boom, snap it on. That simple. Manufacturers really need to follow suit with these kind of simple phone type of mount things if they want to have an FPV phone mount, and this is the way to do it. Alright, so for example, mounting up your phone, super easy. You're just pushing down and clamping the thing on, just like that. And there's your phone mounted up. I think that's actually the way it's probably supposed to go. So it's a little bit higher up on the controls. Speaking of the controls, let's go ahead and just go through the controller real quick. It's probably very similar to the first generation, but this has altitude hold function. So I'm already noticing the left stick is spring loaded to the center. So that's going to be our altitude hold. When we let off that stick and flying, it's going to hold that altitude wherever it is. Noticing up here, the shoulder buttons, we have 2 on the right side and 2 on the left side. One of them's red. 1 key start, 1 key landing switch. So this should be when you are going ahead and starting the quad up. This should have something to do with launching, starting the motors up. Okay, so on the left here, this one to the left of the red switch, this saying here, it's a light switch, a headless mode, and a 1 key return switch. I don't know how it could be all 3 of those, because you can click it once and hold it. We'll definitely be testing that out in the flight test coming up in just a sec. Then on the right hand side, we've got 2 buttons as well. One of them is the 3D roll, which is your flips, the one closest to the center. And then one of them is the high-low speed switch. So this would be your rate switch, so you can go faster in the pitch and roll. Noticing that the sticks do not click in on this one. But anyway, this is going to be your throttle up and down for gaining and dropping altitude. This is going to be your yaw left and right for turning the head. And this is going to be your forward and back pitch and your left and right roll. So pitch, roll, and said trims for said functions over here on the surroundings. And this is just a blank. There's no buttons here to press. It's just like a cosmetic little blank thing here. And that's basically it. Spinning it around, there is a screw here in the back, so you're going to need to take that screw out to access the battery compartment. It does have a little clip on here, so you probably will never have to throw that darn screw back in. But anyway, it's 1, 2, 3, 4 AA batteries, and it clips in nice and tight. So yeah, no need that screw. Anyway, that's it for the controller. Let me go ahead and throw some batteries in here, power this thing up, make sure we can connect our FPV on here. We'll go through a little tutorial on how to connect your phone. Okay, so let's just really quickly go over a connection to a cell phone. So on your app store, if you have iOS, whatever, I just typed in MJX, and I got these two on top. I don't know why there are two. Go ahead and install that. And so once that's installed, all you need to do is go ahead and get over to your craft. I haven't charged the battery, but I'm just gonna go ahead and just do this initially just to see if make sure everything's working, and then I'll go ahead and charge up the battery, and then going ahead and powering up with the off on switch, which is a little tough to reach. You can see the lights here blinking just like the old MJX X600, same kind of light scheme, blue in the front, red in the back. I believe that's how the old one was. Turning on the controller. So I'm going to go over here, go into the Wi-Fi, and go ahead and go to MJX here on the screen. You can see that MJX, and just connect. That's basically the X601 giving off its Wi-Fi. Then we're going to go out of that and then go into the app we just installed. So here's the app. I'm going to click on monitor, and I'm seeing nothing. So for some reason I can't get the app to work here. Let me try one more time. I have no idea why this is not working. Maybe it's the G5. Let's go ahead and try another phone, see if another phone works. Okay guys, so MJX X601, awesome quadcopter. It looked awesome, but I, for the life of me, cannot get it to connect to the FPV Wi-Fi. Well, I can connect to the Wi-Fi. I cannot get it to get any picture on the screen with the app. I tried both of those apps. One's the 005, one's the 006. This shows up on the Wi-Fi as 005. When I tried the other app, it says connected to wrong Wi-Fi. So I went ahead and went back to the 005, which connects and works, but when I boot it up, all I get is this screen here where there's no image, nothing. I can't do anything here. All I can do is go back out, and it just says monitor. So in my book, that's a major con. I mean, if you can't fly FPV and the thing is supposed to fly FPV, what's the deal? I tried it on my newer G5 phone, tried it on my older HTC M8 phone. Both the same thing, nothing worked. So I'm going to have to give a major con here for this one as far as the FPV goes. I'm sure it's going to fly good. I have high hopes for it to fly great. So just really disappointed in the FPV on this one. It's like kind of unfinished, and it's not working. At least for me anyway, it's not working. Tried everything I know how to do, and I can't get it to work. So anyway, let's charge up this battery. Go ahead and take it out and do a flight test out in the park. I'm really anxious to try this altitude hold. That's pretty much the only difference I'm seeing here. If it's just going to be flying in its regular state with no FPV, I'll probably just take off that camera because I can't do anything with it. There's no SD card slot, micro SD card slot in the camera, so it's not like you can record to the camera. Any recording would have been done on the screen here, but I can't even get any pictures. So probably just take off that FPV camera and just fly it like a regular line of sight hexacopter, kind of like the X600 was for me, and have some fun with that altitude hold and some of the other functions on here and see how that works. So let's go ahead and take this thing outside and do some flying and see how it does. Okay, so we're in the park with the MJX RC X601H altitude hold hexacopter. And what you're going to notice here is I actually took off the whole FPV system. As you can see on the bench, I was having trouble connecting it to the cell phone. So really disappointed that I couldn't get that FPV to work. So I took everything off. I'm just going to scratch that. And in my book, that's a major con. I couldn't get it to connect with 3 different Android devices. And this isn't the first time I've done this. So as you can hear, the wind in the mic is a little more than I'd like because the wind's coming from this direction, maybe about 10 miles per hour right now. So hopefully it's going to be kind of variable right now during the review. But anyway, if you can withstand the wind noise, what we're going to do is we're going to do a thorough flight test on this. This is the one that has the altitude hold. And so let's go ahead and boot this up, see how it does in the park, and then we'll take it back in the house and do a little house flight and see how it fares in a no-wind environment. So that should be fun too. And really for this one, all you have to do is press this red button. It seems like you can't start the motors or anything unless you press this red button. So you press this red button, motors power up, and then you're ready to fly. So I'm just going to push up on the controller. Ooh, nice and peppy. So it looks like this one, let me go readjust this because it looks like this one is in mode 1 right now. And I do not know how to fly mode 1. So I'm going to power down. What was happening is I'm used to having my yaw on my left stick, but on this one the yaw was on the right stick. So let me go ahead and change that real quick. Okay, so just had to reference the manual real quick there, and all it's doing is, I was in stick mode 4 I believe, not mode 1, but if you want to change the modes for your control liking, you just hold in this red button here, then you're going to see here on the screen, now it's mode 4, holding it again, mode 1, mode 3, and I want mode 2. There you go. So a good option, you can fly in all different kinds of modes. So let's try that again. So a red button pressing real quick, powers up the engines, and launching. There we go. Okay. So I want to go into, this is rate 1. I want to go into, well, there was a flip. Okay, so the right trigger closer to the antenna is your flip mode. And I want to make sure, there we go. Okay, and the right trigger closer to the outside of the controller here is your rate mode. So it looks like it only has two rates, faster and slower. Seems like it's a little bit sluggish, but this is all about testing this altitude hold on this craft. So it is a little bit windy, so there's going to be more than normal fluctuation. But that's it there. There's the altitude hold. It seems so far like it's working pretty darn good, even in this wind. I'm not going to be touching the left stick for a while. You can just see me flying around with the right stick, pitch and roll here. And it's holding its altitude very well in this wind. Fluctuating, you know, a foot up and down, maybe a foot or two. But so far, very impressed. So let's bring it down a little more, and let's see what the yaw's like in this rate. This is going to be rate 2, rate 1, rate 2. Looks like they're about the same in rate 1 and rate 2. Would have liked to seen maybe a little bit of a higher rate for this one to fight the wind, but it is fighting this. You can hear the wind in the mic is pretty strong right now. Anyway, let's go ahead and test some other functions. So that flip was the top right trigger that's on the left side here. So it flips well. Let's go ahead and just do a hover test here. I'm just going to get it like about head height. Let it go into its altitude hold here. And just get it right up close to the camera so you guys can see how this thing looks in flight up close here. It's actually surprisingly quiet. I just dropped it down a little bit. But here we go. Now you can hear that how quiet it is. And I'm not touching the altitude hold, I'm just touching the pitch and the roll just to kind of keep it in the sky here so the wind doesn't blow it away. But listen to how quiet that is, man. That's great. It's a real stealthy flyer, it seems. did want to turn off the lights. I believe that this left trigger here on the far left, the silver one, it looks like I had actually already turned them off. You just click that in once to turn them off. See what happens if we hold in this left trigger button. That looks like it's headless mode, yeah. So hold it in the left trigger button and that's headless mode. So that's actually working really good. I launched right over there and I'm just pushing forward and back, left and right, and it is pertaining, going in the direction pertaining to my launch point in headless mode. Let's do a little spin while we're doing that. Yeah, so it's working really well. Okay. And let's see what happens if we just click that one time after we're in headless. There's our return to home, so it's going to come back and it's going to keep going, but it did come back. Let's see what happens if we go out of headless, holding in that trigger again. Here in 3 beeps. Now we're back into regular flight mode. Just want to make sure I'm in the high rate here for the wind. And let's do a return to home way out here. I'm going to turn it sideways and I'm going to try that return to home. Turn sideways and click it. Couldn't really tell if it wanted to return to home. Let me do that one more time. Let me get out here. Click it again. Oh, it looks like you got to be in headless really for it to do return to home. It's just kind of blowing back in the wind now. So you've got to be in headless, which is holding in this guy. You're going to hear 2 beeps. Now I'm in headless, where the orientation is always going to be pertaining to where I'm standing. And then we can go ahead and click that in again once. And there you can see it tilt back to fly back home. And once you give it some input, it'll cancel that return to home, but you still have to get out of the headless mode, so you're going to hold in that button again. Hear those 3 beeps and we're back in flight mode. So let's go ahead and do a range test before the battery dies on us. Not sure what the flight time is going to be, but I assume this one's going to be a pretty long flight time. And you know what I want to do is I'd like to go ahead and stay at this height, and I'm not going to touch the throttle. I'm going to go straight out to the other corner of the park, and let's see if it maintains its height while it's going. Oh, it's going down. Looks like the wind's kind of pushing it down. So just going to kind of be a little bit more careful here. And I'm going to roll left and right. I can see it. I'm not sure if you guys can, but I'm probably about 200 feet or more now. Still in control. Oh, a little bit of drop out there. Oh, yep. So that was some dropping out, and that seemed like maybe 250 to 300 feet of range there. So let's go ahead and get it and continue on with the review. Okay, so I went ahead and had a little bit of a retrieval there. Let's go ahead and just try this again. That was about 250 to 300 feet before it started getting wishy-washy. And I had to, even when I held the controller up high, it still was kind of in and out, and I kind of crashed because I couldn't really see it and control it. So expect about that much range. This would be a good option to do like a mod where if you could bring out the antenna out of the controller, you could probably get a better mod. Since this is an FPV version, Wi-Fi, I'm sure they probably have the control antenna in the X600. They had it down in the bottom here, so probably an antenna mod will give you much better range, kind of like I did with the X600, and that pretty much doubled the range on that one. So anyway, let's continue to fly. Let's do some fast flying here. See how fast we can fly with it. Turn off those lights, give us a little more flight time. So keep in mind there is some wind here, but I'm just going to go out and fly full pitch forward. Now when what's coming back with the wind, it's going to start zooming really quick. And let's see how we can fight that wind. There's a little bluff there, and the wind kind of picks up right on that bluff. But you know what? It's pretty quick. I do have to control the altitude when I'm going in the wind. You see, when I'm going with the wind, no problem. Ooh, oh. Well, there's a crash test for you, right into that post. Let's go ahead and retrieve it and see if we have some damage. Okay, so it nailed that post, and the battery flew out because I don't have the battery screwed in. But it looks like minimal damage. Looks like just the battery flew out, so we'll go ahead and fix that and turn it off real quick. Put the battery back in. Doesn't look like any of the propellers broke, just a little bit dirty. And that's the thing about this guy, is the X600 was super durable. I dropped it from hundreds of feet right into concrete and it didn't break that one. So this one looks like it's also going to be super durable. No breakage, just some scuffing up and a little bit of dirtiness. Looks like that post had some bob wire on it. But anyway, let's pop this battery back in and continue our flight. Okay, so powered up again after that crash there into the pole, and let's just see if it's going to fly okay and stuff. So powering on the motors, and you know what's cool is, let me see if it remembered if it's in rate 2. Yeah, you know what, it remembered it was in rate 2, I think, because I powered off completely and then relaunched. Turn off the lights, and it stayed in rate 2. Well, that's cool. So just keep in mind, a little bit of a slow descender. Since this is altitude hold, let me go ahead and do full throttle up and down test. So here's full throttle up. This is pretty slow. And here's full throttle down. So you can see how slow, it's just easy coming down. A couple feet per second. So keep that in mind. This is not going to be a super fast, sport flyer. It does get going pretty quick if you hold the stick. If you hold the pitch stick. And just a little bit of a con there. You might have seen that. Let me just go ahead and land it. You might have seen that pitch stick come off. Let me land it and show you what I'm talking about. And to land it, you just basically land and then hold the throttle down and it will power off the motors. But you can see this, you may want to glue these on. It's good for packaging, but these will get loose and they might fly off. So I'm not sure if that's a con, but I'd go ahead and super glue these guys right on. It's just a little hex that pushes in. But that thing, when I was flying, it just slipped off. It just came off like that. So just a little bit of a con there, but easy remedy. So I want to keep flying until the battery runs out, and I want to kind of see what happens when the battery goes into its low voltage. I'm not seeing any blinking lights yet. I do have the lights off, but they should still blink when we get into low voltage. And it's pretty windy right now. This is kind of the max wind I'd really fly this in. 10 mile per hour, 10 to 15 mile per hour. Really not ideal conditions right now, but it does seem to be holding its own as long as you don't hit the power lines there. Oh, see, that stick came off again, and that makes it pretty tough. So as you can see, that pitch stick just fell off as I was pushing it forward, so that will be a problem. It kind of induces some panic, but all you need to do is get back and push this little nub here, and that will get you back in control. So I think that was pretty much all of the modes and stuff we went through. So now we're just flying around until we run out of battery power, and just going to see what it does. We'll go ahead and try some flips. Let's see if we can flip while we're pitching forward. Yeah, so you can be pitching forward and flying at speed, and then go ahead and do a flip while you're still holding forward, or roll, whatever you'd like to do. Let's try a couple rolls here. Yeah, you can be flying forward and then just kind of pull the stick to the right or left as you hit that button. You'll be able to do some easy rolls. So if you didn't want that altitude hold on this one, which makes it really slow in the ascension and descension, I'd go for the X600. But if you're a beginner, honestly, this would be great because it does have that altitude hold, and you don't have to worry about keeping it in the sky. It'll just stay there at the altitude you let off the stick. And then all you need to worry about is flying and turning. So really good for beginners, you know. But for advanced pilots, it might get a little bit, you know, boring as far as the speed you can go. So anyway, looks like I am seeing these low voltage flashing lights. They just came on a few seconds ago. So that's good. They will come on even if you have the lights off. And I want to see what happens to it. I'm going to keep it, I'm pushing full throttle up, and it's not letting me go any higher. So it's in its kind of its low voltage, looks like an altitude kind of lock thing, which is interesting. And now it's dropping. It's not letting me really pitch anymore. It kind of went into like a full power loss. So, you know, that was maybe, I don't know, 20 seconds or so after it went into its low voltage blinking, and then it landed like a slow descent. But the weird thing with that is it wouldn't let me really pitch anymore. It kind of locked into its horizontal position and then just slowly landed. So you don't have much control when it does go into that low voltage. But anyhow, great park test flight. That was great. We got to test all the modes here. And let's go take it in the house and see how it does in a no wind environment. I'm sure it's going to be much more stable in no wind. We'll be able to see this thing, you know, see the lights a little more. I'll have it in a little bit low light in the house, and let's just see how it performs in the house. All right, so we're in the house with the MJX X601H. Let's go ahead and see how this thing flies in the house. Got everything bound up and ready to go. So it looks like the calibration, you just, if you want to level out the gyros and the accelerometer, you just go ahead and bring both sticks to the bottom right, and you're going to see the lights on it flash. Want to make sure you're on a perfectly level surface, and that will level the copter for a level flight. So let's go ahead and see how this thing does in the house. Pressing the red button, spins up the motors. Go ahead and lift off a bit. And there's our hover. And altitude holds, so really phenomenal. And trim to the right, just one click. Looks like that might have been even too much. So it looks like it's pretty level flying with just all the trims to the center, as long as you do your calibration. And you can see how nice that thing just sits in the air. Just got a little bit of a drift, but not much at all. So this is going to be rate 1. Full sticks back and forth on our pitch and a roll. Rate 1. There's turning off the lights. We got that silver button here. Turns on and off the lights. Then on the right hand side here, we got our little button here for our rates of flight. So we're going to go to rate 2. We hear 2 beeps. And there's our second rate. Pitch and roll. A little bit more, what you'll find on this one is it's not an immediate pitch. It kind of slowly goes into its maximum pitch and roll when you push the stick all the way. And it's really not much more of a pitch at all between rate 1 and rate 2. You might get maybe a couple degrees of difference. Let's see if you can see that here on camera. If I hold it full forward and then hit the pitch, see it tilt forward a little bit more, just a tad. Anyway, here's our rate 1 yaw. And this one's doing a nice stable pirouette, pretty much centered in its horizontal position here. I'm not seeing really any wobbling, just maybe a little bit. So that's rate 1. Rate 2 looks like it doesn't change, so the yaw rate is the same. So rate 1 and rate 2, you're only changing the pitch and roll rate. So there's our flip. So you have to be actually pushing in a direction with your right stick. When you do push this button here for a flip, you can see how nice and stable this thing's hovering. Pretty amazing. So I'm going to be pushing forward, and then I'm going to do my flip with this button here. So forward, flip. And it does give us a little burst of speed, burst of throttle, and so it's going to get us up and then maintain its altitude pretty good after the flip is done. So very satisfied with that. I'm going to go into headless mode. So I launched from that direction, and I'm going to go ahead and hold in this silver button here. We're seeing our lights start to flash on the X601. And here we go. So I'm pushing directly forward. It's going a little bit forward to the right there, not too bad. Pulling back, it's going a little back to the left. So the direction is a little bit skewed. I don't know, it may have been facing that way, but it seems like it's doing pretty good. No complaints there. After, I was doing some yaw and spinning, so that's actually pretty good, maintaining its bearing for headless mode. If you want to do a return to home, you have to do a return to home in headless mode for a return to home to work. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it maybe all the way. Whoa, there's a little crash test. So that was actually good because it noticed that it was hitting the wall, and it completely just shut off the propellers. So that's actually what I like to see on quadcopters and hexacopters in general, is I like to see when they do crash or they're imminently crashing that the propellers shut off. So here we have a little bit of a bent propeller from that crash, and you know what, I'm not going to put on a new one right now. You should probably put on a new one, but just for this review I'm just going to even this sucker out and go ahead and continue flying. Let's go out of headless mode and let's go ahead and relaunch. Let's see after that crash if it's skewed at all or if it flies okay. Still flying great. Alright, even just bending that prop back, it's flying like a charm, so no problem. Very resilient to crashing. So let's try that again. So going into headless. Okay, pushing forward, and I'm going to turn again to my left. Okay, so I'm facing that way now, but I'm still perfectly aligned. It knows where I am as far as its bearing for headless mode. So left is always left, right is always right. Forward is always forward, and back is going to be always back, no matter which way the head is turning. So you have to be, like I was saying, you have to be in this mode before you do a return to home, and then you just press this silver button one time. And that's going to be return to home. So it's coming back, cancel out. You just go ahead and hit this right stick any direction, and it will cancel the return to home. Going out of headless, holding in that button there, we're going to hear 3 beeps. The lights go on solid, and we're back in standard fly mode. So this thing is flying exceptionally well, really, really smooth. It handled the wind pretty good at the park, even though it only has 2 rates of flight, and the second rate really doesn't have much pitch. It still did really well at fighting the wind. So I'm just going to fly it around here in the house a little bit. Let's go up here, up in the upstairs here, just kind of hover there. You can see the lights over there. A little bit of fluctuation in the altitude hold, but not bad. I was actually just barely oh, okay, so we started to get sucked into the ceiling there. A little bit of variation in the altitude hold. So in the house, it seems like with any altitude hold toy quad like this, you're going to get that fluctuation of a couple of feet, and that's normal. So just keep that in mind. You might have to have a little bit of input on your throttle stick to adjust altitude. But as you can see, it's nice and smooth. It hovers really nice. Cool. So I want to see what happens when we press this red button if we're just hovering there. Oh, cool. Alright, so it's going into a slow descent, which I can still control, the pitch and the roll. Wow. Impressive. Okay, so you saw that when I pressed the red button, it did a really slow descent, and it went ahead and landed really soft and slowly. I could still control it in the pitch and the roll, and it went ahead and shut off the motors on its own. So that is great. So it looks like this one won't do an auto takeoff. So all you can do is power up the motors. Then you have to actually push the throttle to launch. And then keep in mind, pushing in this red button will change your stick mode. So I accidentally actually went into stick mode 4, and I had to cycle all the way through while I was flying right there into stick mode 2 again. And fortunately, this is such a stable flyer that it let me just hover there while I was cycling through the stick modes, which took about 10 seconds. And since it hovers so well, it didn't crash or anything. So I'm just going to kind of keep flying this thing until, you know, we run into our low voltage. Looks like it's going to be a really stable flyer without, and a long flyer without any of the camera equipment. So, you know, maybe somebody else is going to be able to get that FPV to work. I honestly tried my best with my 3 Android tablets and phone devices, and I just couldn't get the FPV to work. So sorry about that, but maybe it's something that MJX can work on to make it a little more user friendly and make sure their FPV is going to work across a multitude of devices if they're claiming it will work with mobile apps. Anyway, just getting a real close-up shot. There's a full forward close-up shot of it. Good lighting. You can see the lighting very well from the sides and underneath. Not so great on top because it is a black body shell. So the light's not going to shine through it all like on the top of the arms. So since we're in the house here, let's try to do a full throttle up. So from a hover to full throttle. That's going to be your full throttle up. So not bad for an altitude hold quad like this. It actually performs really well. Full throttle down. So there's our full throttle drop. Let off the throttle and it will just hover there in its altitude hold mode. So with this one, very, very impressed with its altitude hold. I know I keep saying that, how stable this thing is, but you know, even after that crash and a bent propeller, just bending it back, look how stable this thing is. Barely any drift, any wander. There's our low voltage blinking lights there. And as far as the flight characteristics and stability of this thing, I can't say enough about that. So I'm just going to keep flying it. There it goes. Okay, so it's going into its low voltage, really slow landing here. I'm not touching the throttle. Just going to let it do its thing. I'm just kind of using the pitch and roll to let it set down. And there we go. So once it knows it's touched down, it just goes ahead and turns off the motors. Really easy to land too. I think this, for a beginner flyer, man, the stability on this is unbelievable. So I think for a beginner, you know, omitting the FPV and just flying like this is like one of the ultimates in my book as far as stability, ease of flight, altitude hold. You can do auto landing. You can't do an auto takeoff, it doesn't look like, but you can do an auto landing. The 2 rates of flight are actually acceptable. I kind of wish the rate 2 was a little higher pitch, or maybe if it had a rate 3, which gave it a little more angle here for faster flight. But as it is, I mean, the headless mode worked really well. A little bit of a con, you couldn't do return to home unless you're in headless mode. So that could be a little bit of a con for some people. I never use really headless or return to home, so I don't really mind much. It's good to learn how to fly just with the nose pointing whichever way you're going. But all in all, I'd have to give this one, you know, a definite seal of approval here because of just how stable it flies. Again, the FPV didn't work for me, so that's a major con. You know, if you buy the FPV version and you've got Android, you know, be careful with that, because I couldn't get it to work with 3 of my devices. Maybe it'll work on an iOS. I don't have an iPhone or anything, but maybe it'll work for you on that. Anyway, guys, I hope you liked the review, and don't forget, you can check this guy out, the specs and the pricing, down in the link below the video, in the video description, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.